Hey y'all, today is Friday, May 13th, and I'm going over your basic skills assessment number 17 practice. In other words, this is your study guide for your quiz that is on Monday. So let's go ahead and get started. You should follow along and check and correct your work as we go through this study guide together. Okay, now that we've gone through that, let's get started with our first section. You will see two cross-section questions on your quiz. They say identify the cross-section of whatever the 3D figure is. So in number one, we're identifying the cross-section of the square pyramid. And I notice that my base is down here, right? So I'm cutting this pyramid perpendicular to the base. It's a vertical cut. So it's not gonna match my base, but what I've gotta imagine is I've cut this thing from top to bottom. When I open it up, what shape am I gonna see? And here I'm gonna see a triangle. Oops, sorry y'all. Okay, now let's look at number two. Identify the cross-section of the cube. Okay, so the cube I know has the same side lengths for all the sides. Okay, so I'm cutting this parallel to the base, and anytime I cut parallel to the base, my cut matches the base, or the shape that I see matches the base. So because this is a cube, I know that the base is a square, and because I'm cutting it parallel to that base, my cross-section has to be a square. Okay, so now let's move on to our surface area questions. So we're gonna find the surface area of a rectangular prism, a cube, a triangular prism, and a cylinder. So let's start with the surface area of this rectangular prism in number three. So there is a formula that you can use, and that formula is surface area equals 2 times the length times the width plus 2 times the length times the height plus 2 times the width times the height. So I'm gonna move that so that we can see the whole thing. Let's see, let's put it right there for right now, okay? So it doesn't matter which term I label as the length, the width, or the height, just as long as I label each number one thing. So I'm gonna say that 5 is my length, 12 is my width, 10 is my height. And I'm gonna use my formula. So I know that I'm gonna have 2 times 5 times 12 plus 2 times 5 times 10 plus 2 times my width is 12, my height is 10. 12 times 10. Okay, and now I'm just gonna simplify this. So I can use a calculator if I like, or you can do this in your head. I know that 5 times 12 is 60. So I'm gonna say 2 times 60 plus, I also know that 5 times 10 is 50, 2 times 50, plus I know that 12 times 10 is 120, so 2 times 120. Okay, now I'm gonna continue to simplify. 2 times 60 is 120, 2 times 50 is 100, so plus 100, and then 2 times 120 is gonna be 240, so plus 240. And I can go and put this into my calculator at this point. So we have, let's see if my calculator pulls up, 120 plus 100 plus 240. My surface area is 460. So 460 meters squared is my surface area. And that's my answer. Okay, so I would write that on this line right here, 460 square meters. So that was using the formula. You do not have to use the formula if you're not as comfortable with that formula. Okay, let's move on to number 4. What is the surface area of this cube? How do I know it's a cube? Well, all the side lengths are exactly the same. Every side length I'm given is 9 centimeters. So it's a cube. So again, it doesn't matter how I label things, length, width, height. I usually just go from left to right as I read the numbers. Okay, so we're gonna use our formula again. So we have 2 times 9 times 9, that's the length times the width, plus, oh, actually, no, because this is a cube, do I have to do that? Well, let's find the area of just one side. For example, let's find the area of this side here. I was going to make us do more work, but we don't have to do this much work, right? Okay, so I'm finding the area of this side. Well, the area of that side, I know is going to be 9. Oops, undo that. 9 by 9, right? So 9 by 9, 9 times 9 is 81. Well, how many sides have that same area? In other words, how many sides are there on a cube? Well, there's going to be 6 sides on a cube, so I can just multiply 6 times 81 to find my area. So let's do that. So 6 times 81, I get 486. Oops. So we get 486 square centimeters. That's our answer. And I would just write that on the line that's given to me right here, 486. Okay, so now let's move on to surface area of a triangular prism. So this one's a little bit different because there's not really a good formula for us to use. So I have to consider all of the sides. So I'm going to start with the base, the 2 sides that are identical, and that's going to be this triangle right here in the front and the triangle that's equivalent to it in the back, right? So I'm doing my front and back triangle first. And you can also do surface area of a rectangular prism this way and like kind of list out all the sides instead of using the formula. But we're focused on this triangular prism right now. So I have to find the area of that triangle. And remember, area of a triangle is 1/2 times the base of the triangle times the height of the triangle. So this 12 right here is my base, and this 8 is my height. So we have 1/2 times 12 times 8. Well, I know that 1/2 times 12 is 6, and 6 times 8 is 48. So I get 48, right? Okay, now let's look at our 2 rectangular sides. So let's look at this right here. Okay, and I know that I've got an equivalent rectangle on the other side, right? So the left and right match. And I know that they're equivalent because this is an isosceles triangle and these side lengths are the same. Okay, so those 2 rectangles on those sides are going to be exactly the same. So length times width, 10 times 14. Well, 10 times 14 is 140. Okay, now I'm going to have a bottom. So it's hard to see in this picture, but there is a bottom to this figure. So if I kind of were to kind of like this right here, it makes a rectangle, right? So, well, what are the side lengths of that rectangle? Well, 14 by 12, right? So, the bottom, there's only one bottom. It sits on that bottom, right? And it's a rectangle. So, 14 times 12, which I don't know off the top of my head, so I'm going to go to my calculator for that one. 14 times 12, I get 168. Oops, again, I did that. So 168. So now I'm just going to add up my areas for all of my sides. So keep in mind, I have a front and a back, and they're each 48. So how many 48s do I need? If you said 2, you're correct. So 48 plus 48. I also have a left and a right rectangle. They're each 140. So I need 2 140s. And then lastly, I have one bottom, so I just need 168 one time. So I'm going to add all of this up together. So we have 48 plus 48 plus 140 plus 140 plus 168, and we get 544. So 544 square inches is our answer. And I would just write that right here, 544 square inches. Okay, now let's talk about the surface area of this cylinder. And we're told to use 3.14 for pi. Now, the way we're going to figure this out is we're going to use our formula. So surface area of a cylinder is 2 times the area of the base. Remember, the base is a circle, and the area of a circle is pi r squared. But there's 2 of them. There's one right here on the top, and then one right here on the bottom. So that's why I'm multiplying it by 2. Now, to find the area of the lateral surface, which is actually a rectangle, we're going to take our circumference. So we have 2 pi times the radius, and then I multiply that times the height of the figure. How far apart are those bases? So now that I know this, I'm ready to plug in for r, plug in for h, use 3.14 for pi, and find the surface area. So why is 4 significant? Well, you notice that 4 goes from the edge to the center of the figure. So what do I call that? Well, I call that a radius. So where I see r, I'm going to plug in 4. And that means that 5 right here is my height. It's how far apart those 2 circular bases are. So we have 2 times 3.14 times 4, which I would need to square, plus 2 times 3.14 times, oops, I'm running out of room, y'all. Let's see if I can do this a little better. 2 times 3.14 times 4 times 5, right? So now I'm just going to plug this into my calculator. I can do it all at one time, or I can do it piece by piece. It doesn't matter how you want to do it. I think I'm going to do it all at one time. So we have 2 times 3.14 times 4, which I need to square. So I hit that a squared button under main. Okay, that's my first piece. Now plus 2 times 3.14 times my radius 4 times my height 5. And I get 226.08. So my surface area is 226.08 square centimeters. So on this line right here, I would just write 226.08. And unless I tell you to round, you're not going to round. Okay? So now that we've talked about surface area, let's flip to the backside and talk about volume. So volume's a little bit easier because there's one general formula. The formula for volume is the area of the base times the height. So you do want to know that big B represents area of the base, and that H represents the height. But a lot of times I don't like to think of it as the height. I like to think of it as how far apart those 2 bases are. What is the distance between those 2 bases? Okay? So now that we've gone over that, let's get started. I think 7 and 8 are the easiest ones here because rectangular prisms and cubes, when you think about area of the base for those, well, they're going to be length times width, right? And then you just multiply that times the height. So our formula even gets a little bit more simple. So here I've got a cube. I'm trying to find the volume. So length, width, height, it doesn't matter how I label them, but I know that volume is area of the base, which is length times width, and then I multiply that times the height. So 3 times 3 times 3. Well, 3 times 3 is 9. Times 3 is going to be 27. So 27 is our answer. So 27 millimeters cubed. 27 millimeters cubed is our answer. Okay. Number 8, what is the volume? So this one's not a cube. It's a typical rectangular prism. It doesn't matter how I label things. So I'm going to say 4 is my length, 2 is my width, 12 is my height. Again, doesn't matter how you label things. So we know to find the volume, I multiply the area of the base, length times width together, and then I multiply that times the height. So my length is 4, my width is 2, and my height is 12. So we've got 4 times 2, and 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 12, I think that's 96, right? Let's just double check. 8 times 12 is indeed 96. So I know that the volume is 96 meters cubed. So number 9, what is the volume of this triangular prism? So this one's a little bit different. I can't use length times width times height. So remember our general formula, volume is big B times H, where big B is the area of the base and H is the height, or how far apart those bases are. So area of the base. Well, I know my base is this triangle in front and the matching one in the back, right? So I know to find the area, I'm going to have to multiply 1/2 times the base of the triangle times the height of the triangle. So the base of the triangle is this 10, and the height of the triangle is that 8. So we have 1/2 times 10 times 8. Well, I know that 1/2 times 10 is 5, and 5 times 8 is 40. So I know to find the volume, I'm going to start with 40. That's my big B. Okay? Now, my height. How far apart are those bases? Well, there's another triangle back here, right? And it matches the one in the front, and it is 6 centimeters away. So I'm going to multiply 40 times 6. And I know that 4 times 6 is 24, so I'm going to add a 0 to that. So the volume is 240 centimeters cubed. You know what I could really go for right now, y'all? Popcorn. Doesn't popcorn sound really yummy? Sorry, I digress. We're on the last one. What is the volume of this cylinder? We're told to use 3.14 for pi. So I know that volume is big B times H, where big B is the area of the base. So the area of the base here is going to be the area of that circle, right? Well, what is the area of a circle? The area of a circle is pi times the radius squared. So pi times the radius squared, right? So do I have my radius given to me? No. I see that 14 goes from edge to edge. So it goes all the way across. That 14 is actually my diameter. So if I know my diameter is 14, can I figure out my radius? Yes, it's just half of 14. So half of 14 is 7. So to find the area of the base, we're going to use 3.14 for pi. We're going to multiply that times 7 squared. And I'm going to go ahead and put that into my calculator. So we have 3.14 times 7. Hit that A square button to square it, and I get 153.86. So the area of the base is 153.86. Now I just multiply that by the height. How far apart are those two circles? Well, they're 9 centimeters apart. So I'm just going to multiply that times 9. And that's going to give me the area, or the volume. Sorry, that's going to give me the volume of my figure. So we're going to go back to our calculator. I'm going to hit the answer button down here to copy that answer, and I'm just going to multiply that times 9, and I get 1,384.74. So volume is 1,384.74, and it would be centimeters cubed. Notice I forgot to change that right there. So if you will, Just make sure you change it there so that it's consistent and correct. So 1,384.74 is our answer. That is the end of this study guide video. Have a good weekend. Your quiz is on Monday. Bye.